you, Kerry. And I love the black and red top that you have. Isn't she lovely?
I like it.
You know, so who else barracks for Essendon? Who used to barrack for Essendon? So, Kerry has told me that tonight is not my usual shtick. So I have to talk about my journey. However, there's some interesting thoughts that I want to share with you, some provocative thoughts. After all, I am Australia's passion provocateur. So I deliberately want to be provocative in a place, do come in. Make yourself at home. In a place that allegedly promotes, do you think it's going to work? That allegedly does learning. Now, I've got a shocking photo for you, which is the next photo that some of you have seen, which you weren't meant to see, but Tina, you make yourself at home with the camera, don't have to, you know, I want good shots, and I want you to share the good shots with me. Does it work? Round of applause for Tim. Bill, sorry, thank you, Bill. Bill has thanks, Bill. Thank you, Tim. That's a good name you got, Bill. So I want to share some provocative thoughts with you in an alleged institution of learning. Now, I loved being at university. I started at Melbourne University in 1970, and I ended with an honours degree in law here. I got my master's degree at Monash, so I'm an alumnus of 2 universities. I've had people begging me to do my PhD, and I have resisted such temptations for some good reasons. If I have time, I will tell you that. But what you see today was not what you saw when I left this university. Look.
That's what I said to you.
So that was November 1973. That's when I finished my law degree when I turned 21. So I'm now 63. So that was 42 years ago. And I'll take that horrific photo later. So, oh yes, and then what I've done, of course, is this was like 2 weeks ago when I was in Hungary at the Parliament of Hungary. And the most beautiful building, for those of you who haven't seen the outside, that's the outside of the building. Quite an amazing building. The inside is simply extraordinary. I was a guest there of the Hungarian government. One of my roles that Kerry didn't tell you about. Do come in, make yourself at home. It's a good place to be. Come and sit at the front. You know, the front's nice. We're not having a collection, so you won't have to. I am president of the Australia-Hungary Chamber of Commerce. I have been for 20 plus years. I've dealt with the last 9 Hungarian ambassadors to Australia, and for 3 years, 3.5 years, I've been working with Tony Clark here as executive chairman of a company involved in the industrial hemp business. And it's ironic that we're talking today when last night medicinal cannabis, which has nothing to do with hemp, when medicinal cannabis was legalised in Australia, which is a wonderful thing. But I was in Hungary as a guest of the Hungarian government because for 3 years we've been bashing the government around the head to say that hemp is a wonderful thing for Hungary to pursue. And Hungary's had hundreds of years of hemp, in fact thousands of years of hemp experience. So that's what I was doing there. So there you are, that's from there to there. Now that moustache, I'll have you know, lasted until 1993. 1994, from 1969, so I had that moustache for 25 years. And I was challenged to cut it off. So I did, and friends that I knew, some said, what have you done that's different? Who had a haircut? They didn't know what was different. Others did not recognise me. They walked past me because my moustache was how they labelled me. So, it's an amazing place, Hungary. Who's been to Hungary? Well done. So, we are part of the work that I'm doing today as in a consulting role, but effective CEO. Tony is the executive chairman. We're running an extraordinary global business, but that's one of the things that I'm doing. But I was a lawyer, and then what we're going to get from tonight is the journey of careers. And I just want you to think about what you've planned in your career. How many of you planned your career? So I want to share some, and who has heard of the world's, one of the world's greatest geniuses of the 20th century alongside Albert Einstein, of a guy called Buckminster Fuller. Who's heard of Buckminster Fuller? Okay, so some of you, very few. And here we are in a place of learning. Many of you have been to university, and it is literally a crime that most people, in my experience as a professional speaker for 23 years, have not heard of Buckminster Fuller. It is a deliberate strategy to suppress brilliant ideas. And what I challenge you with the thought in this place of learning is that even at Melbourne University, one of the group of 8, one of the top universities in the world, if you come out with provocative ideas that don't coincide with the thoughts of the majority, you will be picked to death. And I have had academics complain to me about that, and at Monash as well, that don't you dare put a proposition on the table that you don't have proof for. So I stand for the proposition of having an open mind now. Steve Wright, the famous American comedian, he said, I'm worried about having an open mind because my brains might fall out. But one of the things I ask you to do is to have an open mind. I have done presentations, all-day presentations, and when I get to the part that I say, I believe as human beings we are designed to live till we are 120, as a matter of science I believe that, if we look after this extraordinary machine that God, the universe, has given to us. I've had comments at the end of the day saying, oh, you lost me when you said that. Now just think about the stupidity of that statement. What you said was fantastic, but when you made one statement with which I disagreed, you lost me. And that's what masquerades in our society today. So our whole society is, if you express an idea that the majority don't agree with, bang, you get hounded to death. There's nothing about saying, wow, I wonder what makes you think that, what makes you believe that. I put the proposition to you that all of us in this room, our combined knowledge, all of our combined knowledge is worth a tiny little bit about the knowledge that's available to be learnt. And yet we walk around masquerading as if we know. And I challenge you to think about, what do you actually know? I had a conversation before walking in here on this from one of the PhD candidates on this question of health. What do we know about health? What do you know about your heart? The biggest selling drug in the world is statins. There is virtually no evidence that says lowering your cholesterol will reduce the chances of a heart attack. I'm 63. I haven't spent a night in a hospital. I've had 2 vasectomies, but I haven't spent a night in a hospital in my life.
Too much information.
Be provocative, it's too much information.
What first hospital did you go to where it failed?
Actually, that's a good. I was quite inaccurate. I had a vasectomy and then a reversal of vasectomy, so I haven't had the second vasectomy. Thank you, Beverly, for picking me up on my lack of accuracy. But I'm serious. My cholesterol, my bad cholesterol is 8. You will go to a doctor and they say, oh, you've got to get it down to 2.5. It's a nonsense. It's a lie. But this is the biggest selling drug in the world. And so I provoke you with the idea of doing your own thinking around life. And very few people are willing to do that. And Buckminster Fuller is one of the key guides to great principle around how the universe works and the challenge of doing your own thinking. The hardest thing in the world is to be who you are, when the whole world is trying to make you somebody else. The hardest thing is for you to be who you are, and the world is making you somebody else, trying to make you somebody else. So the outcomes tonight are, I want to provoke you to think differently. And for those of you who are over 100 years of age in this room, you can ignore the comments on career. But for the rest of you, on my analysis, if you're not over 100, you've got at least 20 years of contribution to make.
What if you feel over 100?
Then what you do is drink less wine. Or more, as the case may be. Now, in terms of science, so in my journey, and we have a lovely opportunity. I'm only allowed to speak for 45 minutes. I would happily speak for 45 hours, or 4.5 hours, but I'm not allowed to. But there will be an opportunity to ask questions. I really want you to ask your most provocative questions. I love provocative questions. I'm not scared of provocative questions because that is how we grow. So in this place of learning, that's what it's supposed to be doing. You come to this and get a new idea. And so this question of career path, so my proposition for you on key outcomes is that anyone who gives you advice on likely successful careers is talking nonsense. Now I say nonsense nicely, but in fact I am Australian. I was born in Australia of Hungarian parents. I think I've got a picture of them. Yes, I have. Mum and Dad arrived here in 1949, in July 1949, 14 July. In fact, Bastille Day, for those of you who know your history. And they came here, my mum was 16. My dad was 25, they were 9 years apart. And my brother, Joe, who's a graduate electronic engineer from Monash, he's 3 years older than me, he's 66. He was born in December 1949 and I arrived in October 52. And then there are twins, Andrew and Vicky, who's a kindergarten teacher of the highest standing. She's now 62, she's been teaching for 41 years. So she now has PhD graduates that were her kindergarten students. Quite amazing. Andrew is a carpenter. My dad was a genius at everything, anything that he wanted to touch. Absolutely poo-pooed academics. Absolutely, he said academics, and I say this with the greatest of respect, and you know when a lawyer says that, what that means, don't you? With the very greatest of respect, Your Honour, it means you're talking nonsense. But with the greatest of respect, my dad was a very wise man, had an extraordinary life, an extraordinary mind. He was absolutely scathing about the education system, about academia, and had a wonderful life. Could do anything, was into philosophy, but the rigidity of university education, which I see getting worse, not better. And then, so Joe and I and Vicky all went to tertiary education. Carpenter, Dad was a great carpenter. Then George was not interested. George...
Tell us more about George.
George, yeah. Well, he's gay. And you know, there's interesting statistics on the fourth boy in any family is huge increase in gayness. Very interesting statistically, because what happens is the fourth boy doesn't get enough love from the father. So there's, you know, it's quite interesting. So George was on the cusp. He married a girl, but then they got divorced, and he was so heartbroken. He went to Europe and fell in love with a bloke. So that tipped him over. That was a tipping point, and now he's happily married to a Hungarian guy that he met in Budapest. And now my mum, who was horrified about this, good Catholics, 90% of Hungarians are Catholics, some small number of Lutherans, about a tiny number of minorities of Gypsies, but hugely Catholic, like the Philippines. Catholics everywhere, including Cardinal Sims died, isn't he? Yeah, what a great name for a cardinal. Anyway, so he's now been with his partner. So telling Mum, we had this big debate. We cannot tell Mum that George is gay. And now she loves her son-in-law more than her own son. He is one of the world's great makeup artists, wig makers. Mum goes there every Saturday to get her hair done, and so that just shows keep an open mind. Dad was alive. Dad died 9 years ago, and then Clara, who Dad said was the smartest of the lot, she was never interested in going to university, and she works at Deakin as the PA to one of the senior players in the game. So that was the Hungarian journey. So I then have 4 children from my first wife. So Rebecca, who did not go to university, none of them are lawyers. So here's part of my philosophy. That all my life I wanted to be a lawyer, and for those of you who don't know, I wrote books about all this, so if you want to invest in passionate people produce and passionate performance about this passion journey. From the age of 7 or 8, I was passionate about being a lawyer, and my core message to everybody is to do what you are passionate about, and I'll give you a model for why that is important. But I was passionate about being a lawyer. I was really clear at school what I wanted to do. And so, but I also said to my children, my happiness does not depend on what you do. my happiness does not depend on what you do with your life. You are totally free to do whatever you want. You are responsible for your life. I am your parent, I don't own you. I care about you, I love you, but I'm going to be happy whether you stuff your life up or not. And my dad was a great example of that. He taught me the secret to happiness. So if you want to get to the end, how do you have a career that makes you happy? I have a 4-word secret for you. 4 words. How do you have a career that's going to make you happy? Isn't that what we want? And by the way, for those of you who are thinking about your grandchildren and children, this is the part of my outcome here is to give you useful messages to your children based on the 51 years of business experience that I've had since I was 12 when I was a commissioned debt collector. At the age of 12. From the age of 10 I was delivering newspapers, but at 12 I became a debt collector. So 51 years. So I have some insights. I've worked with many organisations over those 51 years as a lawyer and then as a professional speaker for the last 23 years. And sharing these ideas with your children and grandchildren liberates them from the nonsense, from the lies that are peddled in our system. Here's the secret to a great career, to be happy with your career path, in 4 words. Choose to be happy. Choose to be happy. Or, if 4 is too many words for you, pick 2. Be happy. Be happy. Now, our society, and I learned this from my father, I had this gift of a wise father who understood how the world worked. From the age of 10, he said that is the secret to life, and he was relentlessly happy all his life, regardless of what he was dealing with. Because if you think about this, why are most people unhappy? Why? Because they've got one thing, they've got a lot of P's, and it's not passion. Why are people unhappy? What have they got that starts with P?
Problems.
Problems! Problems!
That's my business.
You're a
Solving
problem
them.
solver?
Yeah, that's right.
That's what every business is. That's what every business is. Problem solving. So can you tell me which group of people that you know have no problems? Dead people, correct. Unless of course we know. Unless there's lots of problems. The only people, hello Ty, look, come in the front row. Lovely to see you. Ty. Hello, Finland. So, anyway, I must have upset him. The reason why almost anybody that you meet is unhappy is because they've got problems. But the only people with no problems are dead people. As a tax lawyer, which I practiced for 20 years, I loved doing. Up until 1993, when I left the law, I was earning $1 million a year in today's terms. I was earning $250,000 in 1993, and I was a tax lawyer, so I was paying the right amount of tax. I understood the law, and I was paying the right amount of tax. And I gave that income away. Lost my train of thought that time. I was thinking of you. So problems. The people who have no problems are dead people. So everyone's got problems, and yet, would you agree with me? There are some people who are happy.
Yes.
There are. There's some people happy.
Many people.
Sorry.
Many.
You're not in my experience. I've only been around for 63 years. I promise, Bev. I promise you. Very few people are happy. And it's because they're waiting for this illusion of, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when my children grow up. I'll be happy when I have children. I'll be happy when I meet my life partner. I'll be happy when. And there's this mythical idea that, in fact, for your career, the goal of your career is to get to retirement with a big enough superannuation fund, with a big enough, welcome, Welcome, lovely to see you both, professors. Two professors, oh gosh, thank God I've stopped abusing professors. I'm talking badly about professors. Okay, this is the game that people are playing, and yet Buckminster Fuller teaches that as a human being, your sole long-term reward for solving problems is not peace or joy or happiness or satisfaction. Your only long-term reward for solving problems is bigger problems. How exciting is that? Your reward for solving problems is bigger problems. So Jake, don't grow up. Because all you get is bigger problems. And so, choose to be happy. Because there are people that are happy who have got problems. So it's possible. And I've got a bucket load of problems. And my problems are getting bigger. I've got to now give a strategy on hemp to the Hungarian government.
I help.
You help? I don't even know what a strategy is, Tony. Do you know what a strategy is? We've got to work on that. But the better you get, the bigger your problems become. Would you agree?
Some people think problems are a lot of fun because they try to solve them.
Some indeed do.
Yes.
Some do.
They enjoy having problems.
Indeed, I do. The evidence of problems means you're alive. And the size of your problem is in direct proportion to your capability and skill level. You attract problems that you are now able to deal with. Therefore, teach yourself and your children to stop waiting for the end of problems to be happy. So you wake up in the morning and you go like Steve Irwin. Oh, crikey! What are we going to do today? Let's go and create some havoc and create some problems. Because most people think the problemless life is the ideal life. Retire. Like, who would want to retire and sit on a beach and do nothing? Like, who would want to do that? Now, some of you would. I'll get to that bit in a moment. So, I have 4 children. So, Tim and Nick are twins. They're 29. They're both Monash graduates. And I'll give you the feedback on their experience. So, I finished university in 1973 here. I did my master's at Monash between 77 and 1980. That was a master's in law. And they're 29, so they finished their degree 7 years ago. Beer and wine. Now, they were scathing, as was Matthew, who's a civil engineer from RMIT. Tim is a biomedical scientist and economist, works for the Victorian government, and Nick is an aerospace engineer. And as I said, Beck didn't go to university. I put no pressure on my children. So coming back to where I came on doing a Billy Connolly here, I said to them from an early age, what you do is not going to make me happy or unhappy. Does that make sense? Because it's a choice to be happy. So my children's behaviour is not the basis on which I determine my happiness, nor is the opinion of any of you or anybody on the whole planet. If you are waiting for approval from other people to be happy, you will be miserable. And if you are waiting for the approval of your parents, you are going to be miserable. And if you are waiting for the absence of problems to be happy, you are going to be miserable. Because you have totally misunderstood what this game of life is about. And I had this gift at the age of 10. I have a Jesuit priest mentor who I talk about in this book, Passion That People Produce. Who's ever had anything to do with the Jesuits? Oh, hang on, that's a bad question these days, isn't it? Who's Jesuit school, Jesuit? I had a great experience with Jesuits. And Tony was one of 10 boys, all of whom went to Xavier. Can you imagine that? My second mentor, was a Hungarian Jesuit priest. And I wanted to be a lawyer. And he said to me, you better do maths and science at school. So I finished matriculation as it was in Year 12 now. In 1969, I got 4 first-class honours and I got a Commonwealth Scholarship in those days to go to university because we didn't have any money. That's why I was working as a debt collector from the age of 12 because I was one of 6 children, remember? So I needed to do this. So from the age of 10, I took responsibility for all of my discretionary spending. And where was I going with that story? Finishing...
Jesuit.
Oh, Jesuits, correct. So Father Vargas said to me, do not do humanities because when you fill in your exams, the teachers won't like what you say. So I did math science. I then came to law school And they said, this is ridiculous, you should be in medical school. You got 4 firsts in physics, chem, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, I always wanted to be a lawyer. This was just another hoop to jump through to go to law school. So I then did, and so having done that, having a great experience, who was at Melbourne University in the 70s? Not many. 60s? No, you weren't.
50s.
50s? 50s. University in the 70s was, we had 8-hour contact hours a week. 8! That meant 160 and no contact. 168 hours in a week. It was extraordinary, the experience, and by the way, I started university the same day here in Melbourne, and have been friends ever since, about the 5th of March 1970, with our current governor, Linda Desso. So Linda and I both started the same day and finished the same day, about 4 years. And it was with one of her girlfriends that I went to New Zealand in a platonic relationship. And then I said I'd never marry someone unless I went travelling with them. So it's a good test for how you decide who you marry, you go travelling. So the point is, Rebecca, who's highly intelligent and clever, I didn't tell any of my kids to go to university. And one of the benefits of changing career, which I'll tell you about in a moment, in 1993, after 20 years of legal practice, was that I didn't have enough money to give to my children, so they had to become self-sufficient. And my children, from the age of 14, I would have been great if I was still earning $1 million a year, but I wasn't. I became a professional speaker, went from $1 million a year to nothing, and then had to rebuild. And so my kids had to learn to become independent. So I talked to my friends, and they had trouble kicking their kids out. My kids all left home by the time they were 19. It's fantastic. They live their own lives. I don't tell them what to do. They don't tell me what to do. They tut-tut from time to time. Then I got married again. So there's Isabella, who's now 5. There she is. I took her swimming a couple of weeks ago. So she started school last week. And so that's an interesting question in career path of what is a good education? Even today on ABC Radio, they're having this conversation. What is a good education? So Father Vargo was my mentor all the way through that. My father was very wise. And so I challenge you with that question. For 5 years, I was the president of the St. Roch's Parents and Friends Association. Who's ever heard of St. Roch's in Glen Iris? So 5 years. And we had a committee of about 30. It was quite extraordinary how many. And I was the president. I'm always the president of organisations because I hate badly run meetings. And I was also on the Law Institute Council for 4 years. But with these parents and friends, they'd come along to these meetings. So I had 4 children at the school, and they would say, we're unhappy about what the principal decided. I said, really? Good. Well, before we can explore your unhappiness about the decision, would you please share with the group your philosophy on education? So what do you think happened?
Nothing.
People, it dissolved. It dissolved. And so what I had the gift was, my dad always said, when I got an honours degree with law, he said, you know nothing. When I got a master's degree, he said, you know nothing. Whatever I achieved, he said, you know nothing, because he was a lifelong learner. That's the challenge that all of us face. And this degree that we think is going to change our lives is such a lie. And what we're telling children today about what you need to do to get on in life is such a lie. Because what I'm going to share with you is that this is an individual choice, and the great challenge of life is what is right for you. What is right for your child, what is right for your grandchildren, rather than what society says is right. So Xavier, one of the preeminent Jesuit schools in Australia where Matthew went, and Tim and Nick, these two went to De La Salle. And I said to them, you're going to De La Salle. Who said of De La Salle in Malvern? Where John Kennedy went. There's quite some interesting people actually. But I said to them, look, you go to De La Salle because Xavier's too far, you know. And Matthew went to Xavier. But of course, I couldn't afford the Xavier fees. They eventually found that out, you know. This lie that I told them.
When you didn't pay them.
No, Tim and Nick. Because they thought they were going to De La Salle because it was closer to home, which it was. But in fact, it was because they got for $4,000 an education that was almost as good as a Xavier education for $14,000. 4 to 14. Today, it's about 8 at De La Salle in year 12 to 30 at Xavier. I promise you, unless you're rolling in money, it's a waste of money. Promise you.
Public's just as good.
Big one?
Public's
Public.
just as good.
Absolutely. And I'll talk about that. One of the chapters that I've got in Passionate People Produce, in fact, the last 3 chapters I was sharing with one of my clients, but it's a crucial issue because the last 3 chapters are how to protect or encourage passion in your child. Tina, it's an action shot, isn't it? Yeah. Come on. This photographer was looking for something different. Hang on, Tina, hang on. Yes, so we get how to protect or encourage passion in your child, specific strategies for your child at school. There are 2 chapters and a whole bunch of subtext here. So I'm going to show the photo. So what you have to do for your child, what that child needs to live the life that child wants, and I worked out the numbers. In 8,400 hours a year, there's only 1,700 that the child spends at school. 1,700 out of 8,400. So home schooling what happens at home is far more important than what happens at school. So Victoria, quite right, public schools, if you have terrific home life, then school is a tiny, hello Stan, we'll find you 2, look here's 2 chairs, one chair here, we'll put a chair there. Down here, there you are. So it's a waste of money unless you're rolling in money, because home is such a huge proportion of a child's life in that first 5 years. And so I challenge you, if you're a grandparent or a parent, to really think about what your education philosophy is, because I never went to university thinking, now that I've got my university degree, my problems are over. Because all that happens when you get university degrees, you get bigger problems, remember? That's the only reward for getting a degree. So, now this is this picture. Oh yes, so this Isabella was with my second wife, and then I'm getting better at this marriage thing because I had 22 years with my first wife, 11 years with my second wife, and now I've got my third wife, Julie, who's here. So I'm getting better at the choices. In fact, I've now made a perfect choice. So I hereby declare I've married the perfect woman. It just takes a bit of time. Now, some of you have picked the perfect partner right from the start. Now, that's one of the mistakes that I've made of not picking Julie the first time. But she wasn't around. I think that's right. I think it would have been a child. In fact, that's right. When I got married the first time, you were 6 years old. Anyway, so there is the president of the Parliament of Hungary, and this is one of the joys of life, where in your career, what's your name?
Rosie.
Rosie.
Yeah.
Problem solver. Yes. You're my problem solver. I just want to say Rosie rather than problem solver.
Sure.
So we are here to solve problems, and the quality of your ability to solve problems is the quality of your caring about the people for whom you're solving problems. So one of the things that's lacking in most companies is caring. So as a lawyer, I deeply cared about my clients. Deeply care. And today I deeply care about my clients. And I deeply care about my audiences. I constantly go, what do I need to do to make sure you are not bored? Constantly, it exercises my mind. And what do my clients need? And it's that commitment to relationship. In the 21st century, the quality of your career is deeply related to your willingness to build relationships. Because everybody can market to the whole world now for nothing. It's free. How much noise are we getting on our computers? It's the people that you interact with, that you have those connections with, that's what makes life. And so I put this picture up here because this is the president of the Hungarian Parliament. He's the third most important man in Hungary. There's the president of the Republic, the Prime Minister, and then the president of the Parliament, Laszlo Kovess. That's his wife, Maria. She's an academic as well. And that's me. In November 2014, they arrived on a trip to Australia. I took them on a day tour. Glenn, you've come back? Can you, like he goes out on a phone call. I cannot believe that's more important than listening to me. I just cannot believe it. So Laszlo Kovess. So this is the point. I was in Hungary 2 weeks ago as a guest of the Hungarian government because when I hosted Laszlo and his wife and the delegation of 8 people, including the head of parliament, the parliament of cabinet of government, I said to him, he came to my farm up near Dalesford. I've been an organic farmer since 1976, so 40 years since we've had an organic farm. That's one of the reasons why I don't go to hospital, because I don't get unwell. I said to him, Hungary needs hemp. And as a consequence of spending that one day with this president, he invites me to, and I've been pushing the government, and he is now sponsoring the establishment of the hemp industry in Hungary. Purely as a result of my face-to-face representations to him. Laszlo, come on, take this seriously, this is a big deal. And then 16 months later, I'm in Hungary at a hemp conference with 150 people, and Hungary has now adopted hemp as a national strategic initiative. You then say, well, how come I hosted them around Victoria? I took them down to the formerly 12 apostles. How many are there now? 9. I think it's 9. 2 gone? 2. 2 left. Now, why was I asked to do that? Because, as I said earlier, I have built relationships with the last 8 Hungarian ambassadors to Australia. So then when the president's coming out, the ambassador says, who's going to look after these dudes? I've got to look after, give them a tour around Victoria. Charles is going to do it. Does that make sense? So the relationships that I built from 1990, when I first involved when Hungary got rid of communism, to 2014, that's been 24 years of building relationships with the Hungarian government that leads to this. So that's deeply understanding the value of caring, the value of passion, being passionate about what you're doing. And you cannot build relationships if you're not passionate. Because people pick fake, don't they? You can tell if someone's faking, except when Harry met Sally. And I'm a grandfather. So there you are, there's Miller. Meet Miller. Now, anyway, here's another challenge for my poor mother, being a good Catholic. And the Catholics and the Hungarians in Melbourne blame the Jews for leaving Hungary, because the Jews were running the Communist Party in Hungary after the war. Very interesting history. In any event, my son Matthew and good Xavier, he married a good Jewish girl, of course, so my daughter-in-law is Jewish, and my first grandchild is Jewish, and my mum's first great-grandchild is Jewish. So how about that? How's that for completing the loop? Well done, Australia. 14 grandchildren and now 2 great-grandchildren. And I put this up here because part of my journey, I've been competing in triathlons for 30 years. The first triathlon that I raced was in November 1985. The life that I have lived has been deeply influenced by my commitment to this machine that I live in, my body. And so one of the challenges for you, and the challenges that we face, if you abuse your body, Philip, then how on earth are you going to be anywhere near what you are capable of? And so I've known that from a very early age. So since 1965, when I went to my first naturopath, when there were 2 in Australia, a guy called Lawrence Armstrong, I have always been interested in alternative health. In 1976, we buy an organic farm because my father saw that true independence comes from the farm, from being on the land, because he lived the Second World War. In 1939, when it started, he was 16, and then 6 years later, he was 22 when it ended. The people who did well in Europe were those who were on the land. So in 1976, we bought this land, and that lies, to complete the circle again, that lies at the heart of why hemp is so important, why family-owned farms are so important, because being human, the core element that makes you human is freedom. Without freedom, you are not human. A tiger does not have freedom. A monkey acts like a monkey. You can choose, you have freedom to choose. If agriculture is corporatized, we lose our freedom. And I say that very seriously. And I started this conversation with you being free to be who you want to be, not being influenced by the rest of the world. And that's how I've lived my life. By having the willingness to make those choices. And the constant pressure, as Buckminster Fuller says, the system says, don't behave like that, behave how we want you to behave. What does the system want you to do? The system wants you to be a good little career person, to run your career so you work hard, borrow a lot of money, pay the money back, pay lots of interest on it, work like a slave to get to nirvana, nirvana being?
Death.
Retirement. Retirement, David, almost death, because retirement is death. So Pat, one of the principles that I bring to play here is that, in my opinion, coming back to Buckminster Fuller, natural generalised principles say that retirement is an unnatural act. Nothing in nature retires. Trees don't, bushes don't, plants don't, shrubs don't, birds don't, animals don't. If you retire, you die. And the statistics are damning on this issue. So this is the life. So my challenge to you is, what's a good life for you? And I have made my decision on what a good life is. But it's up to you. And most people don't want to think, as I think it was Henry Ford said, thinking's the hardest work there is. That's why nobody wants to engage in it. Another great quote. Most people would sooner die than think, and they do. Most people would sooner die than think. And so I'm challenging you on this whole question of, hey, what do I think is a good career path? Patanjali, Hindu philosopher, 2nd century, to be very politically correct, BCE these days, before Common Era, no before Christ anymore. When you are inspired by some great purpose, some extraordinary project, all your thoughts break their bonds, your mind transcends limitations, your consciousness expands in every direction. You find yourself in a new, great and wonderful world. Dormant forces, faculties and talents become alive, and you discover yourself to be a greater person by far than you ever dreamed yourself to be. What inspires you? What inspires your children? What inspires your grandchildren? And Buckminster Fuller said, you are meant to do what only you uniquely see needs to be done. You need no permission. I'll give you one direct example of that. What permission do you need to stand for Parliament, for federal Parliament? Whose permission do you need?
Your wife. Spouse.
Nice, spouse, nice, I like it. Not even that. Whose permission do you need? Nobody's. Nobody's. And yet most people are running around thinking this permission that we need. Freedom is what makes us human. And so what the inspiration is, where the passion comes, because when you are inspired, you become a greater person by far than you ever dreamed yourself to be. And the dreams that you get come about from your indoctrination from your parents, Alex. Your parents have said, this is the good life, Alex. Don't you get outside this. I coach senior executives who are now in their 50s who are not doing what they love doing because they did not want to upset their parents. Oh, serious. Serious. All their lives they've done what their parents wanted them to do. The world will belong to passionate, driven leaders. I've known this. I was passionate all my life. And the reason why I stopped being a lawyer in 1993 was because I went to business school with a guy called Robert Kiyosaki. Who's heard of Robert Kiyosaki? And in that program, there were 160 people, all paid large amounts of money in Hawaii to be there for 16 days. And most of them did not know what they were passionate about. And I was a lawyer. I went there as a lawyer. I had no intent to stop being a lawyer. And I spent 16 days in a business school. I stopped being a lawyer. And it's that openness to new ideas and go, wow, and this took me a whole new, for 23 years now, I've been a professional speaker, an author, a coach. I run seminars, I'm an educator. I mean, I wouldn't qualify as an educator at Melbourne University, but I've only been doing it for 23 years. Okay, so, and I've always known that what passion does is liberate you. What passion is a clue to what you're meant to be doing. So the job that we have is to gain self-awareness. So I've done huge, in my book I talk about an incredible range of personal development programs, some incredible incredible space age ones too. And yet today, Kerry will attest to this, no maybe doesn't count as much, but the university will, less than 10% of Australians invest money in their education after they finish formal education. because they're not investing it anywhere else. And the world is changing incredibly rapidly. So that was the gift that my father gave me, the Father Varga, the Jesuit priest with whom my dad worked. Now, here's the audience participation time. For those of you with smartphones, here's your big opportunity. You're allowed to take your smartphones out now, please. I want you to go to kiwilive.com. And to help you read, and for those of you with smartphones, seriously, for those of you with smartphones, take them out. This is an interesting experience that I want you to have. My darling, have you got one? Jake, have you got a smartphone? Good. So go to kiwilive.com, and then when it says enter the event, there's a space there. You put kiwi.kovess. Okay, Phil, it's hard to do this. I'm going to have a wine while you're doing this. You go in. Dash. You got to put kiwi-kovess. Not dot. Did you get in, Glenn? So that's interesting. That's good. I'm doing an experiment on you lot here.
Okay, well I've got the live, but it's a blank screen, Charles.
kiwilive.com.
Yeah, and I put in keep, so I've come on tonight. Is it still loading?
Kiwi-kovess. K-O-V-E-S-S.
No, I'm on the blank screen.
K-O-V-E, join event.
Hang on. This one's got a blank screen. Maybe if I just...
Yeah, that's where it goes in. So the point I want to demonstrate, the point of it should be coming up with a thing that says you can have all these documents I've got to help your career path for your children, 5 steps to find your perfect job, 17 steps to find your passion. I've got a free ebook for you. Okay, so that's what it's meant to be doing. And the idea is these days, and whilst you're not so much a Gen Y group, I have found one thing, you know, Gen Ys are just like the rest of us. I've raised 4 Gen Y kids. They're human. I found this, they're human. But the interesting use of technology is what this is supposed to be doing, and it's not working, is it?
It's not working.
It's all working.
No, it's definitely not working.
Are you on? So that's it. So Glenn's on, so you can put in there and ask for certain things, can't you?
Yes, I've already sent you it.
There you are. So someone's gone on, so there you are. That's what that's meant to be. So as an opportunity to, rather than giving bits of paper out, so you then print that out. But there's 3 gifts there for you. If you can't find it, then if you look up kovess.com, that'll be there. Now, I want to talk with you one other couple of things because Kerry's giving me the wind up. I want to talk to you about your mind, and this is what drives your belief system. You are driven by your beliefs, and your beliefs have all come into your subconscious mind from the time that you were born. And what you now believe, if we took a survey now of what we believe, we'd be horrified. The executives with whom I work, I say to them, what do you believe? Do you know most people can't answer that question? I promise you. Most people are consciously unaware of what they believe, and yet our beliefs are driving our behaviours. So when I say something that upsets you, that's because it contradicts a belief that you might have. And it's only a belief, it's not a fact. And so you need to understand what's in here, because the Stanford Graduate Business School, which has an advisory board of 75 leading intellectuals, says the most important leadership capability, almost overwhelmingly of these 75 people, is self-awareness. Self-awareness. What is your life about? How aware are you of what your life is about? And then, as you learn that, then you can teach that to your children, to your grandchildren, to people around you. As I did with the parents at the school. When I said, well, what's your philosophy on education? They didn't have one. And so, what is your philosophy on life? Because no one can tell that to you. You are free to make that choice. And most people don't want to do the work. I've done the work. My message is that the reward for doing the work is enormous. One last thought. Here's my definition of passion. I am the world's expert on this topic. Passion. No one has done this work for 23 years like me. I need an honorary doctorate, Kerry. I need your influence. Passion is a source of unlimited energy from your soul, your spirit, your heart that enables you to produce extraordinary results. Extraordinary results. Why? Because most people are not passionate. Most people are not passionate. So when you are with unlimited energy from your soul, you are above ordinary. You stand out. And that's the journey of a great career. When you wake up every morning and you embrace the problems, knowing that your successfully overcoming of those problems is only going to lead to bigger problems, and you are happy on that journey. Now, passion is like a dam full of water driving a hydroelectricity scheme. Passion comes from your soul. It's not a mental thing. You come to university to develop the mental, but this is where your true power comes from your soul, from your spirit, from your heart, and looking after your body. And most Australians do not look after their bodies. And they're unhappy in the best country in the world. Malaysia's not bad, but not as good as here. So I've got a present for each of you on the way out. It's these. I've got 2 cards for you as a reminder, which is different to the stuff that you can download on that site. One is a bookmark size card. Yes. So notice they're the same colour as Kerry's outfit. And another one is a business card and a bookmark for each of you. Okay, so it ties in there. And the way to live a magnificent life is to balance the mental, the physical, the spiritual. Look after your mind, your body, your spirit. Now, last idea. There's a whole bunch. Here's the last idea I want to share with you. And then, Kerry, you can take over and facilitate the most difficult questions you can ask of me, Pat.
I've got one.
Good.
Pat first.
What skill do any of you have that you learnt without making mistakes? The answer is nothing. You aren't even breathing properly. I've been observing you sitting. You're not even sitting properly. You're not even breathing properly. You haven't even learned to do that, so you're making mistakes as you're breathing. Okay, so not one skill do any of you have that you learnt without making mistakes. And yet, what does our society do when you make a mistake?
Punish.
Punish. And so, my message to you, to your children, to your grandchildren is we need a whole new attitude in our society around mistakes. And I would happily, for the next 3 hours, share with you my mistakes. If you are scared of making mistakes, you will cease to learn. When you are not learning, you're not growing. When you're not growing, you are dying. So the path to a great career is to pursue what inspires you, what you're passionate about, to be happy on the journey, and to make as many mistakes as quickly as possible, because that's the way for you to develop your skill level. Ultimately, when I facilitated programs for leaders, and I said, what would happen to you if you lost everything except your health, your family, and your friends? What would happen to you? The answer is you'd have a magnificent, all of the burdens of stuff would disappear. As Janis Joplin sang, didn't she? Freedom is just
Another word for nothing
left to lose. And I started right at the start. Freedom is what makes you human. Stuff takes away your freedom. That's your choice. May you make many enlightened choices. Thank you.